weight of the world. The rain hammered the window, each drop a frantic beat against the glass, a rhythm echoing the turmoil in Leo's gut. He tugged the tattered quilt higher around Lily, her fragile form curled into the makeshift bed of salvaged cushions. A faint fragrance of lavender released from her cherished sachet offered a small comfort in the tight space. "Papa." Her voice, a mere breath, barely pierced the storm's roar. "Yes, sweetheart? Did you sell any pictures today?" A pause stretched, thick with unspoken anxieties, before Leo forced the words unnecessary fiction. He'd spent the afternoon beside the library, Lily's whimsical art displayed on a rickety table met with only indifference. Almost Lily love. Lots of looking. Thankfully, she didn't probe. She possessed an unsettling wisdom for one so young. He smoothed a lock of hair from her brow. "Sleep tight, little one. Dream sweet dreams." He lingered, watching her face soften in slumber, her breathing deepen. He yearned to shield her from the harsh realities that clawed at their existence, the biting chill seeping through the thin walls, the persistent hunger pangs, the ever-present dread that clung like a shroud. Stepping quietly into the cramped kitchenette, hardly more than a cupboard, Leo faced the stark reality etched on the chipped counter, a solitary plate, a gnawed apple core, a pyramid of past-due notices. Rent, electricity, the looming specter of darkness. He raked his fingers through his already messy hair. The weight of their precarious lives bore down on him, a suffocating presence. He'd shielded Lily from the eviction notice, delaying the inevitable. How could he explain that their fragile hold on stability was about to shatter? Staring out at the rain-slicked streets, the city lights blurred into a hazy, indistinct glow. He longed for a miracle. A winning lottery ticket, a benevolent benefactor, some unforeseen deliverance from this crushing weight. But fortune, it seemed, rarely smiled on those in their circumstances. Later, after a fitful attempt at sleep on the worn-out couch, Leo was roused by the gentle scratching of crayon on paper. Lily sat bathed in the soft light filtering through the parting clouds, a tableau of innocent creativity. "What are you drawing, Lilybug?" She looked up, her eyes bright with hope. "Our new home, Papa." He approached, his heart aching with a mix of love and despair. The drawing was a riot of color, a grand two-story house boasting a cherry-red door, nestled in a verdant lawn beneath towering trees. Wisps of smoke curled invitingly from the chimney. "It has a room just for drawing," she pointed to a large upstairs window, and a garden for growing flowers. "And," she paused, her voice laced with anticipation, "and a swing set, Papa. A really, really big one." He knelt beside her, his voice tight with emotion. "It's magnificent, Lily. Truly magnificent." He knew he couldn't surrender. Not for her sake. He had to find a way to make her dreams, even those that seemed impossibly distant, a tangible reality. He would carry the burden, endure the hardship, do whatever was necessary. Because in Lily's guileless gaze, the world remained a canvas of endless possibilities, and he refused to let that light be extinguished. Never. A moment of courage. The screech of the alarm clock was a daily affront, but this morning it felt particularly cruel. Leo slapped it silent, the digital numbers mocking him with the time, 6:15 a.m. He had exactly 45 minutes to get himself and, more importantly, 7-year-old Lily ready for the day. Groaning, he pulled himself out of bed, the familiar ache in his lower back already a dull throb. He skipped breakfast, grabbing a stale granola bar from the cupboard instead. Lily was a late sleeper, a trait Leo secretly envied, so he let her slumber a few minutes longer while he packed her lunch. A peanut butter and jelly sandwich, apple slices, and a small bag of goldfish crackers. Standard fare. The 7 a.m. bus was his lifeline. Missing it meant being late for his shift at the warehouse, a situation he couldn't afford. He hustled Lily out the door, her bright pink backpack bouncing against her small frame as they hurried down the street. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp leaves and exhaust fumes. As they approached the bus stop, Leo noticed a woman standing near the curb. He recognized her vaguely, Amelia something or other, lived a few houses down. She was always impeccably dressed, a stark contrast to Leo's worn jeans and faded t-shirt. Today, she wore a tailored gray suit and held a briefcase. Suddenly, Amelia stumbled, her heel catching on the uneven pavement. She lurched forward, directly into the path of an oncoming delivery truck. Leo's mind went blank. There was no thought, no hesitation, only pure instinct. He shoved Lily behind him, a guttural shout ripping from his throat as he lunged forward. He reached Amelia just as the truck bore down, its horn blaring a deafening warning. He pushed her with all his might, sending her sprawling onto the sidewalk. The impact was a blinding flash of pain. Metal crunched, glass shattered, and then nothing. Leo felt a searing agony in his leg, a sharp, throbbing pulse that radiated through his entire body. He was vaguely aware of the truck screeching to a halt, the driver leaping out, shouting something he couldn't quite comprehend. He looked over to Amelia, who was sitting on the sidewalk, her face pale with shock, but seemingly unharmed. "Are you okay?" he managed to croak, his voice raspy. Amelia stared at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. You saved me," she stammered, her voice trembling. "You saved my baby." She placed a hand on her stomach, a gesture Leo hadn't noticed before. Lily was screaming, her small hands clutching his arm. "Daddy! Daddy!" The world swam. The pain was intensifying, making it hard to breathe. He saw Amelia dialing her phone, her face etched with worry. He tried to reassure Lily, but the words wouldn't come. He just wanted the throbbing in his leg to stop. Darkness began to creep in at the edges of his vision. He squeezed Lily's hand, a silent promise to always protect her. Then, everything went black. Hospital lights and teddy bears. A steady pulse echoed in Leo's cottony mind. Eyelids heavy, he fought to bring the blurry world into focus. Above, the overhead light glared, a sterile white. He was supine, a flimsy blanket his only shield against the chill. Each breath sent a jolt of pain through his ribs. Hospital. He registered the antiseptic scent, the hushed atmosphere. Panic, sharp and sudden, clawed at him. Lily. Where was his daughter? He attempted to rise, a lance of agony piercing his side. A strangled groan escaped his lips as he slumped back against the pillow. "Take it easy," a gentle voice cautioned. He turned his head gingerly. Lily was nestled in a chair beside him, her small form curled tight in slumber. Her soft cheek rested on Barnaby, her beloved, time-worn teddy bear. A wave of relief, so intense it nearly stole his consciousness, washed over him. She was secure. She was unharmed. A nurse stood nearby, her expression compassionate. "She hasn't stirred from your side since the paramedics brought you in. We suggested her aunt take her home, but she wouldn't hear of it." "Thank you," Leo rasped, his mouth parched. How is she really?" "She's fine, simply exhausted. A bit shaken, naturally, but otherwise perfectly well." The nurse adjusted his fore. "You certainly gave everyone quite a fright. You're a remarkably brave man, Mr. Maxwell." Leo's brow furrowed. Brave? It was instinct. He'd seen someone in peril and reacted. "How long?" "You've been unconscious for roughly 12 hours. A few cracked ribs and a minor concussion, nothing life-threatening. We'd like to observe you for a day or two." She hesitated, her demeanor shifting slightly. "You're quite the sensation on the news, you know." He stared, bewildered. "News? The lady you rescued, Mrs. Albright? Her husband is exceptionally grateful and exceptionally connected. He's making certain your actions are recognized. There are reporters outside, eager to speak with the hero dad." Shimam quotation marks. Leo's stomach clenched. He craved anonymity, a swift return to their quiet, routine life. The thought of media attention descending upon them filled him with profound apprehension. He struggled to make, he would repeat it without a second thought. But facing the aftermath, the sudden glare of the spotlight, the intense examination, it felt almost as terrifying as the plunge itself. He slipped back into slumber, the persistent beeping of the heart monitor a constant reminder of his location and his deed. A hero, they called him. But all he desired was to be a devoted father. The price of heroism. The flickering neon sign of the laundromat across the street cast a sickly green glow through the grimy window as Leo unlocked their apartment door. Lily, clutching a drawing of a winged cat, trailed behind him, her usual boundless energy subdued. The air inside was stale, heavy with the scent of dust and unwashed laundry. It smelled like defeat. "Home sweet home," Leo said, trying to inject some cheer into his voice, but it fell flat. Lily didn't respond, just padded over to the small table in the corner that served as her art studio and carefully placed her drawing down. He watched her, his chest tight. He'd promised her new art supplies this month, promised her a trip to the zoo. Promises that felt increasingly impossible to keep. He tossed his keys onto the chipped Formica counter and the thud echoed in the silence. His gaze landed on the stack of envelopes mocking him from the corner. Bills. They were always there, a constant, looming threat. He ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. The hospital bills from his brief stay after the incident were at the top. A stark reminder of his recent heroism. A heroism that felt increasingly like a luxury he couldn't afford. He picked up the electric bill. Double last month's. He remembered leaving the ancient window AC unit running full blast the day he'd collapsed. Foolish. Selfish. He should have known better. Lily was humming softly to herself, sketching in her notebook. He envied her ability to find solace in her art, to escape the crushing weight of reality. He wished he could. He closed his eyes for a moment, picturing the luxury cars that had lined his street, the reporters shoving microphones in his face. Felt like a lifetime ago. The shrill ring of his cell phone shattered the fragile peace. He glanced at the caller ID. Sal, his boss at the warehouse. He hesitated, dread pooling in his stomach. He hadn't been able to make his shifts the past few days. He took a deep breath and answered. Hey Sal, it's Leo. Leo, my man. Glad you're still alive. Heard you played Superman there for a minute. Sal's voice boomed through the speaker. Listen, about your shifts. Leo braced himself. We've had to cover them, you know? Real busy time of year. And, well, Ramirez is looking for more hours, good kid, reliable. Thing is, Leo, gotta have reliable. The words hung in the air, unspoken but clear. He was being replaced. I understand, Leo said, his voice barely a whisper. He looked at Lily, still absorbed in her drawing, oblivious to the crumbling world around them. Look, I appreciate what you did, Leo, really. But business is business. Maybe things will open up again down the line. Sal's tone was almost apologetic. Yeah, maybe, Leo said, knowing it was a lie. He hung up, the phone feeling heavy in his hand. The price of heroism. It was a price Lily was going to end up paying. Luxury cars and kind faces. Lily was the first to see it. She was perched on the worn window seat, sketching in her notebook, trying to capture the way the late afternoon sun painted the peeling paint of the house across the street in shades of orange and gold. Dad, she said softly, not looking up, there's a really shiny car coming. Leo, who was hunched over the sink, wrestling with a stubborn, grease-caked pan, grunted. Probably just Mrs. Henderson visiting her sister. Don't let it distract you, sweetie. Dinner won't cook itself. But then Lily gasped. A small, sharp sound that made Leo drop the pan back into the sink with a clang. He dried his hands on his jeans and went to stand beside her. The car was black, sleek and impossibly clean against the dusty road. It moved with a silent grace that seemed out of place in their neighborhood, a place where sputtering engines and rattling pickups were the norm. Wow! Lily breathed, her eyes wide. The car stopped directly in front of their house. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a figure emerged, tall and dressed in a suit that seemed to absorb the light. Leo felt a prickle of unease crawl up his spine. Before he could say anything, another car appeared, identical to the first, followed by a third. They lined up neatly along the curb, a phalanx of polished metal and tinted windows. It looked less like a friendly visit and more like an invasion. What's going on? Lily whispered, clutching his hand. Her small fingers were cold. Leo squeezed her hand reassuringly, though his own heart was hammering. I don't know, honey. Stay here. He moved towards the door, but hesitated, his hand hovering over the chip paint. He glanced back at Lily. Her face was a mixture of fear and curiosity. He couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was about to happen, something that would irrevocably change their lives. He stepped back from the door, opting to watch from the window a moment longer. More figures emerged from the cars, all dressed in similar dark suits. They moved with purpose, their faces unreadable. One of them produced a phone and spoke into it, his voice too low for Leo to hear. The silence, punctuated only by the distant chirping of crickets, was thick with anticipation. Lily leaned closer to the window, her breath fogging the glass. They look like they're waiting for something, she murmured. Leo's mind raced. Had he done something wrong? Owed someone money he'd forgotten about? He hadn't, he was sure. He worked hard, paid his bills, mostly. He hadn't even had a parking ticket in years. But the men exuded an air of quiet authority that was intimidating. Then one of the men turned and looked directly at their window. Leo instinctively pulled Lily back, shielding her with his body. He couldn't see the man's expression, but he felt the weight of his gaze, a silent question hanging in the air. The feeling was unnerving. He wanted to protect Lily, to keep her safe from whatever was about to unfold. But from what, he still didn't know. The crickets chirped on, oblivious to the drama playing out in front of their little house. A debt of gratitude. The scent of frying onions hung heavy in the air, mingling with the metallic tang from the junkyard across the street. Leo flipped the last pancake, his stomach rumbling in protest. He hadn't eaten since yesterday's meager dinner. Lily, perched on a stool, hummed a made-up tune as she meticulously colored a drawing of a fantastical creature with rainbow wings. A knock echoed through the small apartment, making both of them jump. Leo frowned. He wasn't expecting anyone. He wiped his hands on his worn jeans and cautiously opened the door. Standing there, bathed in the harsh afternoon sunlight, was the woman from the accident. She looked even more striking outside of the wreckage, her dark hair gleaming, her eyes sharp and intelligent. Beside her stood a tall, impeccably dressed man who radiated quiet power. "Mr. Maxwell?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. Leo swallowed, suddenly feeling acutely aware of his own disheveled appearance and the cramped, cluttered apartment behind him. "Yes. I'm Amelia Hayes," she said, extending her hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "And this is my associate, Mr. Davies." Davies offered a curt nod. Leo shook her hand, bewildered. I don't understand." Amelia smiled, a genuine, warm smile that softened her features. "I believe you do. You saved my life, Mr. Maxwell, and the life of my unborn child." She paused, her gaze softening as she looked at Lily. "I understand this is your daughter, Lily?" Lily, peeking from behind Leo's legs, shyly nodded. "I wanted to thank you," Amelia continued, her voice thick with emotion. "Properly. In person." Leo shuffled his feet. "It was nothing, really. Anyone would have done the same." "Don't be so modest, Mr. Maxwell," Davies interjected, his tone surprisingly gentle. "You acted heroically, and Miss Hayes and I are both very grateful." Amelia stepped forward, her eyes locking with Leo's. "I understand you've been having some medical issues yourself, Mr. Maxwell, and that you work tirelessly to provide for Lily." She paused, then took a deep breath. "I'd like to offer you assistance." Leo stiffened. He'd never been one to accept charity. "I appreciate the thought, but we're doing okay." He glanced at Lily, who was now staring wide-eyed at Amelia. "Okay." Amelia's voice rose slightly. "Mr. Maxwell, you nearly died saving my life. Okay, isn't good enough. I want to pay for Lily's education, the best education money can buy. And I want to cover all your medical expenses, past, present, and future." Leo's head swam. I couldn't possibly," Amelia cut him off, her voice firm. "This isn't charity, Mr. Maxwell. This is a debt of gratitude, and I intend to repay it." She looked at Lily again, a spark of determination in her eyes. "Lily deserves every opportunity. And you, Mr. Maxwell, deserve a chance to live a life free from worry." She paused, her expression softening. "Please, let me do this. For both of you." A leap of faith. The silence after Amelia's departure was thick enough to choke on. Leo stared at the chipped porcelain mug in his hands, the dregs of cold coffee swirling like muddy thoughts in his mind. Her offer felt like a lifeline thrown to a drowning man, yet his pride, that tattered, threadbare garment he'd worn for so long, snagged on the jagged edges of his own self-worth. To accept meant admitting defeat, acknowledging his inability to provide for Lily, to be the father she deserved. He could almost hear his own father's voice, laced with disappointment, echoing in his memory. "A man provides, Leo. Always. But what kind of man lets his daughter eat ramen for the third night in a row while his lungs screamed with every breath?" He found Lily curled on the worn sofa, her crayons scattered around her like fallen soldiers. A half-finished drawing of a fantastical creature, a purple dragon with rainbow wings, lay abandoned on the coffee table. "Hey, Peanut," he said, his voice rough. He sat beside her, careful not to disturb her sanctuary. "Can we talk?" Lily looked up, her eyes, so much like her mother's, filled with a quiet understanding that always unnerved him. She seemed to sense his turmoil, the weight he carried on his shoulders. "Is everything okay, Papa?" He hesitated, searching for the right words, the right way to explain a situation he barely understood himself. "Remember the lady I helped yesterday, Amelia?" Lily nodded, her gaze unwavering. "Well, she wants to help us, Lilybug. She offered me a job taking care of her house and other things." He swallowed, the words sticking in his throat. "It would mean we'd have a nice place to live, good food, maybe even. Lily, it would mean I could get better." He watched her face, searching for any sign of disappointment, of shame. Instead, her eyes lit up, a slow, hesitant smile spreading across her face. "Really, Papa? A real house? With a garden?" He nodded, relief washing over him in a wave. "And you could get medicine?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, Lily. Promise." She threw her arms around him, her small body trembling with excitement. "Thank you, Papa. That's like a dream come true." Her pure, unadulterated joy broke through the last vestiges of his pride. He hugged her tighter, burying his face in her hair. He would do anything for her, even swallow his pride whole. When Amelia called later that evening, Leo answered on the second ring. He took a deep breath, the scent of dust and desperation clinging to the air around him. "Amelia, it's Leo. I want to thank you. And yes, he said, his voice firm, I accept your offer. Blooming kindness. The casserole arrived first, followed by Mrs. Gable with a basket overflowing with hand-knitted blankets. Then Mr. Henderson, the retired carpenter, showed up with a toolbox and a determined glint in his eye, announcing he was fixing that leaky roof. Come hell or high water, and don't you argue, Leo. Lily, peeking from behind her father's leg, watched the parade of kindness with wide, curious eyes. It was overwhelming, this sudden surge of generosity. Amelia Hayes, her face still pale but resolute, arrived in a town car that looked ridiculously out of place amongst the modest houses. She carried a large box overflowing with art supplies. For Lily, she explained, her voice thick with emotion, to nurture that beautiful imagination. Lily, emboldened, stepped forward and shyly accepted the box, her fingers tracing the smooth wood of the colored pencils. The small patch of overgrown land behind their house became Leo's focus. He envisioned a garden, a place where Lily could learn and grow and where the community could come together. He called it Blooming Kindness Garden, a testament to the outpouring of support they'd received. The initial days were backbreaking work. He tilled the hard-packed earth, his lungs burning, his body screaming in protest. But Lily was his shadow, her small hands picking out rocks and weeds, her chatter a constant, encouraging hum. Word spread, and soon neighbors joined in. Old Mrs. Peterson, despite her arthritis, carefully planted rows of herbs. Young Timmy, from next door, proudly wielded a miniature shovel, digging furiously under his mother's watchful eye. Even Amelia, carefully navigating the uneven ground, helped Lily plant sunflower seeds, her pregnant belly a gentle curve against the setting sun. Laughter filled the air, mingling with the scent of freshly turned earth and blooming petunias. Lily, usually reserved, blossomed alongside the garden. She ran between the rows, her laughter echoing, pointing out the first sprouts of lettuce, the vibrant colors of the pansies. She drew pictures of the garden, filling notebooks with sketches of sunflowers and buzzing bees, her imagination taking root alongside the seedlings. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Leo sat beside Lily on a makeshift bench, watching the children water the newly planted flowers. He felt a warmth spread through him, a warmth that had nothing to do with the setting sun. It was the warmth of community, of hope, of kindness blooming in the most unexpected of places. He still faced challenges, he knew, but tonight, surrounded by the fruits of their shared labor, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't known was possible. He squeezed Lily's hand. It's beautiful, isn't it? Lily nodded, her eyes shining. Just like you, Papa. A future in bloom. Stained glass transformed the auditorium's sunlight into a kaleidoscope that danced across Lily as she strode across the stage. Leo watched, his breath snagged. A fierce pride swelled within him, eclipsing the dull ache of his chronic illness. He recalled their early struggles, the ever-present dread that circumstance would stifle Lily's brilliance, the blur of hospital waiting rooms, those countless, budget-friendly ramen dinners, shoes patched together with fervent hopes. He thought of Mrs. Dubois, her compassion a guiding star, and the ensuing wave of generosity, the scholarship that opened doors for Lily. Now, resplendent in her academic gown, she stood as a beacon of tenacity, a testament to the power of chance. Leo tightened his grip on his cane, knuckles bone white. Nearby, a woman dabbed at her eyes with delicate lace. Unfamiliar, she was likely another parent, similarly moved by the moment. Lily accepted her diploma with a graceful inclination of her head, her smile radiant. He glimpsed the imaginative little girl who once populated scraps of paper with mythical creatures who'd narrate stories in hushed tones, her voice brimming with wonder. That spark, though dimmed by adversity, now burned with renewed intensity. The ceremony concluded, and a surge of graduates and guests cascaded onto the verdant lawns. Maneuvering through the throng with his cane, Leo felt a gentle hand guide him. It was Lily. "Dad, you came," she cried, her eyes alight. She embraced him, her hug firm and secure. He breathed in her perfume, an unfamiliar, sophisticated floral scent, a world away from the harsh, generic soap they once shared. "Wouldn't have missed it, sweetheart," he croaked, his voice thick with emotion. "I want to show you something," she said, taking his hand. She led him to a secluded area of the lawn where an easel stood shrouded. With a dramatic sweep, she unveiled it, revealing a portrait of Mrs. Dubois, her kind eyes captured in remarkable detail. A solitary tear traced a path down Leo's time-worn face. It's extraordinary, Lily," he choked out. It's for the school, she explained. A token of gratitude. A lasting memory. He understood. A reminder that even amidst the bleakest circumstances, a single act of kindness could blossom into a future brimming with promise. A reminder that even the most tender seedlings, nurtured with devotion and opportunity, could burgeon into something magnificent. And in that instant, enveloped by the sun's warmth and the aroma of freshly mown grass, Leo realized that their journey, though fraught with difficulty, had been immeasurably worthwhile. It had delivered them to this very place, this moment of luminous potential, a future unfolding like a flower.